Holy shifting Batman, this season with the new moon, the astrological start of the year, Pluto fucking moving into Aquarius, like literally so many shifts cosmically, emotionally, physically, energetically, like all the things are literally up in the air, which can create a lot of chaos and uncertainty for people, which is really why launching Shift this week is probably the best thing that could have happened for all the changes that we're all feeling. When I tap into all of my clients and my friends and my fucking self, I realize that things are absolutely changing right now, and it is wild. And without a sense of groundedness or a practice to bring you back home to find your center of peace, it can feel really overwhelming. Hey, we're Britt and Chris Carmichael, and you're listening to the Elevated Life Podcast. Throughout the 16 years we've been together, we've never ceased in our endless quest to better ourselves.
We've studied top experts, philosophers, and gurus. After years of personal self-experimentation and working with thousands of clients, we've found the tools for shifting your beliefs, moving through fears, and developing a positive mindset that aligns with your authenticity, integrity, and soul purpose, regardless of your past.
If you're ready for a breakthrough, then you're in the right place, because we're here to empower you to take control of your life with simple mindset shifts that create radical transformation.
We'll be diving into topics like personal growth, health, philosophy, spirituality, relationships, success, and mindfulness. We don't shy away from the taboo topics like sex, hypnosis, meditation, and exploring altered states of consciousness.
So create some space for yourself and get comfy. It's time to become the badass you were born to be.
You know what I love about this season is it really shows you who has been working on their mental game. Because when you get busy with stuff, and that's one thing people almost never talk about. They never talk about how busy it is to actually go after your goals. You always hear about success and ambition and all these kind of fun things. We're going to go after this. We're going to make this amount of money. But no one ever talks about how crammed your schedule gets. If you want to be healthier, suddenly now you're at the gym, you're going and buying extra stuff. Now you have to cook all of your meals. Every little bitty thing you want to do adds more things in. And once in a while, you look down at your calendar and you just think, I need a break. Like I've been going so hard for so long. And so this season really invites people, especially to start watching. Watch who right now is crumbling and watch who right now is really thriving. The thriving people are the ones who've mastered the mindset, who can deal with the overwhelm, who can deal with the things that once their schedule and their plate gets too full, they figure out how to manage it themselves.
It's all about balance. And Maxwell Maltz said, happiness is learning the art of relaxation. And I think that's really where that's the defining point, is when you get overwhelmed, do you spiral into burnout, or do you step back and recharge in a way that you need and you can regulate?
So let's start talking about some of the strategies that you can use if you do feel overwhelmed. And remember, being overwhelmed, being in a burnout phase is very normal. It's very normal. And truthfully, you should be constantly skating up against that to see where your body wants to regulate, to see where your energy management comes in, to start to figure out how can you balance your life. And you want to be popping that, because otherwise you're not even coming close to what your potential could be. So the first thing to do is to make sure that you're dropping every single non-essential commitment that you have. You want to be literally stopping anything that's not important. So any kind of extra social stuff that you've done, any kind of extra TV watching, any kind of extra just stuff, cut it out and start giving yourself the self-care time. Start making your mornings a little bit different. Start making sure that you're eating good foods, because that's one of the big things that I see a lot of people do is they start running their business better. And so they're busy, they're going places all the time, they're flying out, they're having to do stuff. They'll forget to eat. They'll forget to drink their water. They'll forget that in order to stay hydrated, you have to drink water with minerals in it. It's people are constantly forgetting these little bitty basic things. I always, with all of my clients, we always go back to the basics. I'm always like, how's your sleep going? Are you drinking enough? Are you eating enough? Are you eating the right foods? It's those basic things, because those have to be there in order for you to succeed at a higher level.
It's so true when it comes to eliminating the non-essentials, because you and I have been having a conversation this week about getting back to that question of what really makes you happy. What is it in your life that you want to experience, or how do you want to feel? And in these conversations that we've been having together, the word simplify seems to come up more than I would ever imagine.
I love the minimalist approach. Like when people figure out like the 2 or 4 things in their life that are really important and spend most of their energy doing those things, they typically lead happier lives. It's when we stop taking care of ourselves, when we stop feeling that same joy in our life because we are overworked, because we are maybe underpaid or undervalued or underappreciated. When we start to feel that, there's like an injustice that goes on in our head, and it puts us in this fight or flight mode, and it makes us pissy. It makes us really, something we need to talk about on the podcast soon is something about anger management, because I really feel like what people need to be able to do is that once you go into that spot where you've hit red and you've been in red for a little bit too long, you have to be able to figure out what to do with that extra energy. What a lot of people try to do is suppress it. They tuck it in that back pocket. They're like, oh, I won't deal with this negativity that I've been thinking and that I've been feeling for a while. And the problem is that energy just stays stuck. And then we have, bursts of outrage. We're mad at the wrong people. We feel like everything's wrong in our world, even if we're ticking all the boxes. Even if we feel successful in every single little bitty area, we can have that negativity that goes on our mind, that anger that we've suppressed for a while. And so we should talk on the podcast about how to start getting rid of that. Yeah. I love that topic.
I definitely agree. When we were doing the forgiveness meditation where you led me to my younger self, I remember asking her, why were you so angry? And she said, because I had so much love to give. I'd love to share that story in depth in talking about anger, but it also reminds me of one of the women that joined the Goddess Retreat last year and is coming to join us next month in Colorado. When we left the retreat, I asked her, how was that for you? And she said, I didn't realize how angry I was. That's really like an eye opener on how much of the emotion that we just store down and stuff away. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, it's usually because we've trapped all these emotions inside of our body and we don't actually release and let them go. So the second thing that you can do is to unplug from all social media, unplug from all the drama, unplug from all that external stuff that is triggering you. When you're overwhelmed, you don't need to go into the belly of the beast. You need to take time to rest, to heal, to really get clear on what it is that you need. I think asking that question, what do I need, at the beginning of each day, and hell, every hour, is absolutely your job and your responsibility to be able to take care of yourself, to know how you're feeling in every given situation, and to know that that feeling is going to change constantly, and that your approach to self-nurturing is also going to have to change to mimic what environment you're in or what you need for that moment. It's a moment-to-moment changing basis, so it's so important for you to always check in. And most of the time, we're checking into the wrong place. We spend that extra time just aimlessly scrolling, and if we're in a sense of anxiety and overwhelm, we're most likely going to be caught in that trap of comparison syndrome, and we're going to go on this negative spiral about how all the things are conspiring against us. So just turn it off, unplug from social media, and that will clear up so much of your mental energy, because I don't know about you, but how much time we spend on the phones these days is a little scary and just causes overwhelm in and of itself.
Go look right now. Do that real quick. Open up your phone, look through your settings, and find out how much screen time are you using per day. Is your cell phone a part-time job? Is it a full-time job for you? Being able to get away from the phone, being able to get away from technology, get away from electronics, really leads us into the next thing, and that is change your environment. You have to constantly be changing your environment because it's the same stimulus over and over again. So if you've been in a negative space for a while, it's so easy. One of our big tricks, one of the things that I love to do, is that if I can tell that Britt is overstepped, has gone too far for the day or for the moment, and you can just tell, like, oh, I'm juggling too many balls right now. One of the things that I like to do is we just have her put her phone down, take a walk outside. And I don't say, hey, you look overwhelmed and stressed out. Why don't I? No. It's not. It's like, hey, you want to go for a walk? It's that simple. It's just using simple words like that, especially when you see someone around you overwhelmed. Just, change their environment. You don't have to tell them, hey, you should change your environment because you've been stuck for a while. Like, that's a dick thing to do, right? And so instead, you want to approach life a little bit differently, approach people, especially if they're in a stress mode, a little bit differently, and just offer them something like, hey, you want to just take a walk with me real quick? I really feel like being outside. And what you'll notice is that when people put their phone down, when they reground, a lot of times their thoughts will clear. They'll start to have, for one, you're exercising, so you're moving, so your body is doing something. And so if you're not in great shape, you're definitely going to be huffing and puffing, which doesn't allow you to think about all the things that you were thinking about. It allows you to put space in. What you're trying to do here by changing the environment, besides the new stimulus, is that you want to put a gap in between all of the thoughts that you're thinking. We get overwhelmed from thoughts. That's the only thing that's really happening. Thoughts are overwhelming us. We say, oh my God, I'm so stressed out. It's typically you're stressed out because of a thought, or multiple of them overwhelming your brain at once. And so if you can get out and do something different through exercise, through walking, through being in nature, through doing something different, and just taking a stroll, focusing on your breathing, I love doing it with somebody that I love. I love being around Britt when we take our walks, just because it gives me just being around her extra energy. She's an important person in my life. And so I want to be around her, especially in times where I'm like, oh shit, this is too much. I took on too much, because it's easy to say yes. We're people who want to say yes because it's cool to say yes to opportunities. It's cool to be, at the party. It's cool to do all the fun things with all the people. But we can't. It's like we don't have the capacity to do everything. So you have to be able to pull back a little bit. I mean, my big thing is we should be doing once a month. We should be getting everybody together, rounding up all the troops, the friends, the family, everybody.
This is coming from the Aquarius.
And seeing people once a month. Britt is trying to see people 6 times a day. And so there has to be that.
Hello, little Libra.
There has to be that balance, and finding that balance between you and your partner. And what can you do? At what point do you say, I've been around too many people, I'm drained. Like, this is too busy for me.
Chris gets overwhelmed by people.
And for the most part, that's about it. Like it's
not thoughts, people.
Yeah, it's being around other people's thoughts, because when you watch people for a little bit, when you pull yourself away from your personality and pull yourself away from your typical interactions with people where you're just talking about the weather and nonsense about what's happening in your life and kids and work and stuff, and just watch them for a minute, just observe, and just watch what their thoughts are doing. Like, watch how they move themselves. Watch people have such a hard time staying in the present moment. They immediately go into thoughts. You'll just look at their eyes for a moment. People trance out quickly. They're in an imaginary world in their thought land. It's almost like they're daydreaming and they can't help it. And so just watch it from them and be like, hey, where did you just go? What was going on?
It's true. When you said, right when you said the only thing that you're really overwhelmed by is the amount of thought that you're thinking, I was literally going to say that when you took a breath. So I'm really glad that you tapped on that, because the overwhelm comes with the amount of anxiety that you're creating in your mind about the input of information, the amount of things that are going on. So the last thing that we're inviting you to do to help curb your overwhelm is to brain dump. This is a very powerful exercise that I do with all of my coaching clients when we start working together, because just like us, you probably have a lot of ideas, a lot of dreams, a lot of cool shit that can feel overwhelming. When we say overwhelming, it doesn't mean bad stuff. Overwhelming can mean, I've got so much good stuff in my life, I just don't have the time to make it all happen, or to show up for everything that I'm being invited to, like Chris said. So I want you to brain dump. I want you to brain dump all the things in your mind that feel overwhelming, that feel heavy. This is actually something that we do even at the full moon goddess gatherings that we do. Every month, the full moon invites you to take an inventory of what you're ready to release. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, take a moment to brain dump. Give your mind space to just blurt it all out, to free up your mind for that next step or some clarity or new perspective. When you're feeling overwhelmed, it's like your mind only has room for 10 channels and they're all turned on and all the noise is going. So simplifying and brain dumping helps to clear out those channels so that you can start to look at it from a different perspective and not feel like there's just so much going on. The other thing you can do is make a list of what you can change. So when you're brain dumping, I want you to assess that list and ask, is there something that I can delegate? Is there something I can do about this? Is this out of my control? Do I need to make a physical action change or a mental perspective change?
I'll tell you a big secret that I do. I don't think I've ever talked about this on here or anywhere else, but every other Saturday, I go get in the car with the dog. I take the dog with me. And we go sit at a pond. And while I sit there, I brain dump. Because I am away from anything. I'm just literally sitting by a body of water. Dog's running around doing his thing. And I have a notes section that I have. And I literally sit down and just write everything that's coming to mind. And it's incredible because the thoughts just come. It's not like I'm willing them to come. I'm not thinking about it. They're just pouring out. And what's weird is to pause and think, oh my gosh, was all that in my head? I mean, the list only takes me like 5 minutes to write. I mean, it's all top of the mind stuff. And I've been thinking about all of this all the time? Once I get it down onto paper, and especially once I start to plan it out. So if I think of a new product, or if I think of a place where we want to go, or if it's something that I need to be doing, I'll write down some of the steps. So once the brain dump is over, I go back and look at the list and say, is this stuff that I want to be doing now? Or is this like 6 months or a year from now kind of stuff? And all the things that are coming up, I like to write down just a couple of steps, like 2 or 3 steps, or sort of some of the big categories of things that I need to be doing with that. And so it allows my mind to relax. I can go, I already wrote that down, so I don't have to keep reminding myself about it. It's that painful reminding period that we get into where we're like, oh my gosh, it's so much. But it's not really. It's just that we don't have the right organizational system for things. It is true once we say yes to too much, that can be overwhelming. But normally, if it's just the thoughts, if it's just something that you can just relax a little bit, it's time for meditation, it's time for breath work. If you want to go way more advanced, it's time for hypnosis work. Letting your subconscious mind just go, just take a big breather. I mean, it felt good for me to just do that. Let's all do it together. Just one big breath in and just tell me how good this feels. One big breath in. And let it go with a little bit of a sigh. How good do you feel?
Bye.
Already.
I feel so good.
So it's this process that Britt's talking about allows you to let your mind take a breather. Like, let it relax for a minute. You've been thinking too hard for too long. You're too strung up in your mind. That's why the whole unplugging from social media is so important. Because every time you see a new post or read a new thing or see a new picture, you have to think more thoughts. Because you have to think something about it. And so if you're not doing that, you're finally giving your mind a break. That's why like limiting your phone use or using it only during certain times or on certain days or however it works for you, just cut it down. Whatever that huge screen time was for you, cut it down.
And live by this rule. This too shall pass. My mama always told me that nothing will stay the same. So remember that if you're feeling overwhelmed, that it won't feel like this forever. So use some of these tools to ground yourself, to find your inner peace, and to really give your mind space to express, to be able to be seen and be heard. That's why the mind's rattling all the time. Like, don't forget about me. I have all these great ideas. But you got to get those ideas out of your head and onto paper so that you can start to make sense of them and actually start taking action. Once you have these thoughts written down on paper, it's a lot harder to avoid them because you've made it concrete. You've made it real. So whatever you're feeling overwhelmed with, know that you're not alone and that this particular week is a rough one, and it is really just to build your character and see how you show up and respond.
So we've given you a lot of actionable items to be able to do. But the important thing really is that once you start to master this, you've got to start doing it with people around you. You've got to start doing it with your coworkers. If you're a boss and you have employees, you got to do it with them, with your partner, with your kids. People get overwhelmed and then get stressed out and then they don't do anything. And then whatever they were working on ends up becoming a failure. And so they feel frustrated and then they don't attempt it next time. And all of that could have stopped if you just asked them to go on a walk. If you just been there and say, hey, let's take some breaths together. Let's just relax for a minute. Let's just get in a better habit, our overall life, a better habit. And once you start doing that, what you'll notice is that everybody around you starts to succeed a little bit more because they feel better about themselves. They feel better about life. They're thinking happier thoughts. This is the magic that happens only once you master it for yourself and then start to share it with others.
Ooh, this has been such a great conversation. We hope that you've found some actionable takeaways for you to implement right now so that you can take a load off your plate. And until then, we will catch you next week. Peace. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Elevated Life podcast. If you loved this episode, please share that love by leaving us a 5-star review and spreading the good vibes on social. You can tag us at the Elevated Life Club. Want more wisdom from us? Become an elevator by joining us inside our monthly membership club at theelevatedlifeclub.com. to discover mindset upgrades, lifestyle hacks, and spiritual tools to elevate your soul.
Each month features a live group coaching masterclass, guided meditations, yoga practice, and more to help you transform your life one step at a time.
It has all the tools, coaching, and community you need to level up, progress every month, and keep going in every area of your life consistently over the long term.
Join us in the club and start your transformation today by signing up at theelevatedlifeclub.com.